Welcome to the Homestead, everyone. This is part 2 of our shed to chicken coop slash solar equipment room conversion. I'm going to show you what we did so far. I'm going to show you one issue we've got with this shed kit that I hope the company takes care of. And then we got our extra lumber and our door. So we're going to frame out that end wall today, the inner wall, and then hopefully get some of our roof on as well. Let's get going. So the nice thing about this structure being 8 feet wide and having the roof pitch that it does is that you can fit a normal door on the end of it. But it has to be centered on the wall and it can be no more than 2 foot 8 inch wide. Because the rough opening for that door size will be about 84 inches high by 2 foot 10 inches, 10 and a half inches wide. Now let me show you the one issue with this kit that I've had so far. Now I already had one tiny issue with the kit, and that is that one of the windows was broken when I opened the kit up. And I emailed the company and they took care of it instantaneously. So I'm hoping with this second issue that they will do the same with that. Okay, here are our roof trusses from the pre-cut lumber and the gusset plates that they give you. I've got one here on the floor as well. And then obviously I've got the middle ones in place. So they give you pre-cut siding pieces and they tell you exactly where to put them. And these have all fit pretty well on the structure so far. But right here, these pre-cut gable ends are cut incorrectly. As you can see, they're supposed to be, I don't know if you can see in my shadow, but they're supposed to be flush the entire way down. Now over here you can see the exact same issue, and up here everything is flush with the peak. And this small portion here holding the two pieces together is in the correct position, an inch and a half off the bottom. So what I'm going to do is get that end wall built and in place, get the door framed in, and then I'm going to put those trusses, those gable trusses, on either end without the sheathing. So let me show you what I've got cut so far for this end wall. We've got our 34 1/4 inch opening. Actually, that's what the door called for by 82. So I was a little bit off, but some of those rough openings can be different per manufacturer. We've got this framed out, and this is the original position of the stud in the wall, which is 20 and a half off of that one, because you're compensating for 3.5 inches on the wall for your sheathing. So we've got that laid out like that. Up at the top, I just framed it out like this. It should be perfectly fine for this gable end door. I know the correct way is to put a king stud in a header, but it's not a problem for me. Okay, let's get this together and up in place. So we have the layout for our interior wall. Let's get it together and get it up. So I did just create this to go straight across at the top instead of framing it out underneath where the roof would be. I'll just take a piece of plywood and go straight up and cut it at the proper angle for underside of the roof, and then just seal it up as tightly as I possibly can so that no dust from the chicken coop this side gets into the solar room on this side. Let me show you what I've done in the past few days without the camera on, and I'm going to talk about an issue with the kit that will make this build a little challenging, but I should have known better. So we've got our door framed out, we've got our porch framed out with these 4x4 treated posts. I used some old ones for the columns. This beam going across is lower, but that's going to give me the opportunity to sit a 2x6 as a rafter on top of it right here with a small bird's mouth. So the problem comes into play with these pre-cut rafters that they gave us in the kit. This ridge cut right here is incorrect, and I did touch on that earlier, but it's really coming to rear its ugly head now because they are actually short from the width that the entire coop is, or entire shed is. They're about 94.5 inches, give or take, maybe 95 inches on some of them, and they need to be perfectly 96. So in the instructions, it does say to lay out your trusses from end to end. I messed up and I incorrectly assumed that they cut them perfect. They're not. So this right here, the cut needs to be totally and completely different. And you can see the gusset plate on here is going to be in an angle as well if I widen these out to the correct width. The sheathing for the gable ends is cut correctly, and that does not match up with these trusses at all. So I made an assumption that the kit was cut correctly, and unfortunately that's not the case. My brother kind of laughed at me. He's like, dude, you really trusted them to cut that correctly? I did, and I shouldn't have. You can see the width of this window opening and this one are cut different. So this window down here is skinnier than the cut up there. You can see the wall stud overlaps here and it overlaps there, where this is different. So that could be because the window that they sourced is smaller than the transom window above it, which is fine, but it looks pretty terrible. Yeah, I mean, it could be covered up by the frame of the window, which it probably will be, but still. Additionally, everything here is plumb and level perfectly. It's all measured out, it's all straight, all plumb, all level, and these pieces of siding don't meet up here. So these are probably also cut incorrectly, but that can be covered up with no problem. So part of today's task is going to be to take off that piece of roof sheathing that I already put up, take off all the trusses, take them apart, and re-nail the gusset plates on all of them. That's going to be a pain, it's going to take a while, but again, it's my fault for not paying attention to that. One thing that told me that everything was really off was that sheathing on the roof, and if that doesn't match up perfectly and go on really easily, then you know you've got an issue. So to finish up this next phase, we're going to get the rafters on the porch, all the trusses redone, everything dried in, and then we can start modifying it for the coop on the inside and the solar room. Taking these nails out is going to take some time. See you in probably a few hours. To get these correct, this is what the gap will look like on most of them. This is probably about 3/16 of an inch off. If they could adjust that from the factory, it would be way easier. So we got them done. They're all identical. Now, this is at the angle of the sheathing. So we lined everything up on this one, and I showed you the gap a second ago. And then we flipped this one over and built every single one of these trusses over here on top of it. And you can see the difference in the gaps. These two at the end are the most egregious. Obviously this one is terrible, and they are all exactly 96 inches wide. I recommend you put those two pieces of sheathing together first, and then use them kind of as a jig, and then put one truss together, use that truss as a template or jig for the rest of the trusses. And then additionally, to make sure, I have mine on top of this piece of OSB, which is exactly 96 inches wide. Why can't the factory do that? So we're making the rafters for our porch addition. Let me show you how I figured out what the slope of the other roof is, because it doesn't tell you in the instructions. So it's nice to have this wall in here to measure it easier. I came over from the point on the bottom of the rafter where it is uncut, 12 inches along this wall. So that gave me this point right here. So your run is always the same as 12 inches, and then I put my speed square right at that 12 inches and measure up straight to the bottom of our rafter on the truss, and it's 7 inches, so it's a 7/12 pitch. And then for my new truss, I just put the pivot point on the edge of my 2x6, and I came over to the common rafter and marked a 7, turned it, made a mark, done. Let's get the rest of our roof on. So I am using these truss plates, or whatever you want to call them, to make it easier for me to put these on, because the bird's mouth or seat that I have to cut into these is going to be very shallow and not enough to actually hold the rafter, or I did make it a truss, in its position properly. So for safety, I'm going to put these on there. And I did cut them a little long, just in case I made a mistake, so I can always trim these back. So you remember when earlier I said these two openings for the windows were cut out differently, and they should be the same. If the windows are the same, well, guess what? This one doesn't fit in. I'm gonna have to trim it off. So don't trust these kits that you buy that they're going to be perfect. They're obviously not, and I've had a lot of issues with this one. I'm going to have to cut this opening a little bit wider. One of the very last things we need to do is get these doors together. They come with spacers and these extra boards here that come across and stiffen the door for you to get it up in place. So we're going to put this one maybe right here, and this little stiffener right there, and we're going to screw those in. Okay, so we have a sport ledger screwed in just below where the door is supposed to go, below the siding, and we're going to lift the door into place and screw it on. I pre-drilled some screws in here so I can just hold it and screw it right into place. So before I screw this in, I want to make sure that the lip on the back of the door fits inside of the jamb. That's flat on the outside. Let's screw it in. Once we get these doors set and the glass in, all we need are 2 more pieces of siding on the end and we're pretty much dried in. Well, there we go. Everything's done except for a little piece of roofing and then all of the cosmetics, and then of course the shingles on the top. But I won't bore you with those details. On the next episode, I'm going to show you how we convert everything on the inside for our chicken coop. We're going to be building roosting bars. Of course, we'll cut a hole for a door for the chickens. On the outside, we're going to be setting up our run. And then on a following episode, we're going to be putting in our solar for our barn. So make sure you do not miss that. If you have any questions, please leave them for me in the comment section below. Now go check out these videos right here, which is our entire solar playlist on how we put in 2 different solar systems into our main house. Have a beautiful, blessed day. We'll see you next time. Bye.